Hey guys, thank you for joining us. I'm Melanie and I am one of the performance marketing specialists here at Live Rent. Today I will be co-hosting this webinar with Paula, who is our business development manager, and we're going to talk about how to spot and avoid rental scams. So thanks for joining me today, Paula.
Thank you for having me, Mel. As Melanie just said, I'm a business development manager here at Live Rent. As you all know, we are a rental platform to connect fully verified landlords with tenants in the most convenient and safer way. And we are here to give you a lot of rental resources for you to spot rental scams and understand how you can avoid them.
Exactly. We also run these free and informative Live Talk live webinars every couple of weeks to help support our community of landlords and renters navigate through the rental landscape. We're actually really excited about our partnership with the Vancouver Film School for today. This is a school that attracts talented students from all over the world, and they really want to support their students who are moving to Vancouver for their studies. So we are going to be talking about scams today and help share some of the information with either current, prospective, or future VFS students to help them rent smarter and safer in Vancouver. If you're currently a student or an incoming student this year, make sure to say hi to us in the live chat.
Today, we're going over 3 different sections in our webinar. Part 1 is Scams 101. So what are rental scams? We'll look at what we mean when we say scam and talk about how students, especially from outside of Canada, are particularly vulnerable to those. Part 2, the biggest scams and how to avoid them. We'll look at 5 of the biggest scams out there right now and how you can protect yourself from them. And finally, part 3, how to rent safely in Vancouver and beyond. We're going to show you a better way to rent so you don't have to spend time looking where the scammers are looking for you.
Awesome. And before we start, we've got some housekeeping to do. So first, the fun part, we're going to take a look at the audience today and see who's here with us. Based on the Eventbrite registration, 27% of our audience have encountered rental scams, and 70% of you guys said that they've never encountered rental scams, which is very lucky for you guys. And 30% of our audience are actually first-time renters as well, so this is perfect timing for them. Paula, what are your thoughts on the audience today?
Absolutely. For those 27%, I'm so sorry to hear you have encountered a rental scam. After this webinar, you will be 100% sure you'll never fall for those again. For the 70%, just make sure that you follow us through so you can also ensure you're never going to encounter those scammers. And for first-time renters, we're going to share lots of great tips for you today.
Awesome. So guys, to make the most out of your experience for this webinar, please remember to turn off your ad blockers. And if you haven't yet, create an account so you can unlock the side panel features and join the conversation with our live chat. The live chat is your place to introduce yourself, let us know where you're from, ask us your questions for our live Q&A at the end of this webinar. It is on the right-hand side of your screen, and we have Live Rent agents that will be answering any immediate questions that you may have. Also, a big shout out to Jay and Jocelyn from Vancouver Film School, who will be joining the chat as well, and we'll be chatting to you guys. So please make sure to say hi to them. We're also going to be running some polls and trivias throughout the webinar, so make sure to participate and have your say. We're actually going to get our first trivia running. So the question is, how much money did Canadians lose to rental scams in the first 6 months of 2019? This is actually a really great question to start us off, so make sure you cast your vote, and we will reveal the results later on. Now, let's get started on the first section of Scams 101. Paula, can you tell us what a rental scam is?
Absolutely. An example of a scam that the Vancouver Police Department outlines is, you think the landlord is showing you a place you want to rent, so you pay a deposit, but when you show up to move in, the property was never available to you and you lose your deposit. Scammers will target renters because of 2 main motives. First one, for money, of course, but second one, also for your personal information for other potential fraudulent schemes. It is very important for you to be aware of rental scams because they can affect people financially, especially if you do not have a financial safety net or even emotionally, because you might lose that sense of security and could have issues trusting other landlords in the future, which you don't want. According to the Better Business Bureau, 43% of renters in North America have encountered a fake rental ad.
Yeah, for sure. And you're absolutely right, Paula. It's more than just losing money. Getting scammed is really upsetting. So I'm actually curious to hear, why should students be aware of scams, and what is it that makes them possibly more vulnerable?
Students might be first-time renters and not have a lot of experience renting, and then scammers could try to take advantage of that. That is particularly special with international students. Sometimes, they're coming to Canada, they don't know exactly how renting works, and they feel like they have to give that information away because the landlord is just asking. Always make sure that you do your homework before going into a rental process.
Mhm. So, before we jump into looking at some of the biggest scams and red flags you need to watch out for, do you have any quick tips or advice for students to help them protect themselves for any kind of scam?
Yes, of course. Don't be scared and empower yourself. This is super important because it's definitely a two-way street. So you can for sure ask to see a landlord's ID or even a BC Hydro bill for the residents to confirm their identity. But if you're on let rent and you rent a verified listing from a verified landlord, we have already done that work for you, so you don't have to worry about anything. We do have an extensive verification process to make sure that both the landlord and your listings are verified. So for the landlord side, we do make sure that they send us a selfie as well as a government issue ID and their business license. And along with that, to make sure that their listing is verified, they need to send us documents such as tax forms, land titles, so we corroborate their name with their listing, and we make sure that we are providing you with verified landlords and listings. And just so you know, over 90% of our listings are verified, so you can rest assured you won't be scammed here.
That's awesome. I already feel more confident to go out there and swerve on any of the scams that might try to get me. Guys, feel free to take notes as we jump into the next section, but don't worry if you forgot your pen. We will be posting this webinar onto our YouTube channel after this event, so you can share it with any other students you know who are going to be renting on their own for the first time. So circling back onto our trivia from earlier, we asked you guys the question of like, how much do you think you guys have, uh, Canadians have lost to rental scams? So from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center reported that in the first 6 months of 2019, Canadians actually lost 1.4 million to rental scams. So 1.4 million, that's actually quite a lot of money. And I think if you're in Vancouver, that's a house. So Paula, what are your thoughts on this, on the poll results?
Well, apparently 40% of the audience said that we lost 1.2 million, and 25% said that we lost actually 875,000. So it's like way more than that, right? As you mentioned, Mel, it's definitely a house. So if you think about it, if a Vancouver one-bedroom apartment is $2,000 and you're giving away a deposit to a scammer, that's $1,000 just for one person. So we definitely need to make sure that we're not doing that. So you're going to learn it today.
For sure. So now that we've set up the foundation for the rest of our webinar, I want to run our second poll right now. So guys, we want to know, how confident are you in spotting a rental scam? Super curious to see if we have any super scam detectives in the audience, and we can ask you to help us lead the next webinar. So for part two of the webinar, it is going to take a look at rental scams that are out there right now and the biggest red flags to look out for. So our first slimy scam that we're going to cover is what we call the deal of a lifetime. So imagine you see the perfect apartment. It's in the right neighborhood. It's stunning. The photos are beautiful. You can imagine where you're going to put your bed, and the price is just too good to be true. This is like the rental deal of a lifetime, right? Or is it? Paula, can you tell us a little bit about how finding the deal of a lifetime could actually be a scam in disguise?
Absolutely. So a good rule of thumb here is if the price seems too good to be true, it probably is. I would say for sure it is. Scammers will advertise an attractive listing with an incredible asking rent. We're talking about a fully furnished unit in downtown Vancouver. All the utilities are included, and the price is just $1,500. That's like super good to be true, right? So they are looking to take advantage of people who don't have a lot of money to begin with, are in a vulnerable situation. Maybe they're new to the city and need a place to live ASAP, or they need to rent a cheaper place because they've lost their job even.
So, are there any good deals out there right now?
Absolutely. There are really great deals right now to find, especially since COVID hit. The landlords are starting to bring the prices down across Vancouver and even more in certain neighborhoods like downtown Vancouver. In the last year, we've seen landlords start to offer rental incentives like 1 month of free rent, discounted rent, free parking included, and even allowing pets because they need to be more competitive now that the vacancy is higher and the demand is lower.
hmm And we also have a great article about some of the current rental incentives out there. So check it out via the pop up right that's coming up on your screen right now. So, Paula, how can you tell what you're looking at is a fair price or if someone is trying to scam you?
That's a good question, Mel. So the first step is definitely to set a realistic budget and stay within that to prevent you from getting attracted to fake listings. You can set a realistic budget by, well, come on, you're a student. You know this already. By doing your homework, of course. You should know the rent averages in the city and neighborhood that you're planning on renting in.
Yeah, that's true. And at Live Rent, we publish monthly rent reports. That is our homework. We make them for Vancouver, Toronto, and now Montreal. And they show the average cost and rent in the city and break it down by neighborhood as well. So you can find out which is the cheapest place on average to rent. Paula, I know you read these rent reports, but how can students actually, find this useful for them?
Well, if a student is looking for a two-bedroom apartment for rent in Vancouver that they want to split with their friend, for example, they need to take a look at the average cost of rent for that suite type in that neighborhood. That will be a realistic rent amount that they will eventually pay. So let's take a look now at what the average rent for a one-bedroom was in the city in April to give you just a quick overview. So as you can see in the screen there, downtown Vancouver had the rental price of $1972, while South Vancouver had an average of $1733. So always make sure you keep these averages in mind when you're looking at listings, because if you find a listing that is, $300 less than that, you should do some more research. What I really recommend people is that they look for listings within the same building or area to see the average rent. You can actually do that on Live Rent very easily. So just check out our buildings page and see all the units available for rent inside it. It's also a great idea for you to take a look at that because you can be more competitive and have a little negotiation margin whenever you're talking to landlords.
For sure. So, what kind of research are you talking about? Like, this is actually turning into a little bit of homework.
Yes, definitely. It is. Google is super your friend. So Google the phone number provided with the listing and see what comes up. Do a reverse Google image search if you're suspicious about the photos. The photos should be nice and professional, but if they're too professional, something could be wrong. You can also ask to see it in person if possible, or ask for a video tour if you're being COVID safe, or even if you're not in the city yet.
That's awesome. So, to summarize, if a deal seems too good to be true, it probably isn't, or it probably is. It's almost kind of like dating. If they seem super perfect in the beginning and like, oh, nothing's wrong, you're definitely like questioning them already. Like your red flags are going off.
Yes.
So you can do, so guys, definitely do some research just to be sure it's not a scam. And on that note, let's move on to our next scam. Paula, should a renter be suspicious if the landlord won't tell you the address of the rental? I would think that the address should be shown, but is that always the case?
Yes and no. Well, sometimes a reluctance to share the address of an apartment is indeed suspicious. It could be pointing to the building not being real or even not belonging to the person who is listing it. However, sometimes the landlord won't tell you the unit number. That can be because it's their home that they're renting out and they want some privacy, or they could be just be cautious of putting their whole address out on the internet.
That's fair. So, how do you know then if someone being shy about their address means that they are a scammer or not?
Your priority to protect yourself in this case should be to view the listing. This is the easiest way to confirm if the listing is legitimate. You can schedule a viewing, either live or virtual, with the landlord or property manager. If they're legit, professionals will be willing and prepared to set up a viewing with you. Of course, the best way to avoid this scam is to browse on LiveRent, where over 90% of our listings are verified. So we've mentioned it quickly before, but verified listings on LiveRent is an easy, no-brainer way to make sure it's a real place. We are a safe and trusted community of renters and verified landlords. And when I'm saying verified, it means that our team has personally made sure that the landlord is a real person by matching a selfie to the government ID, as I mentioned before. And when a listing is verified, it means that we either saw documents like the land title or we sent them a postcard to the address so they could they could prove that they actually own that listing, right?
hmm Our verification features are actually really fantastic. We put a lot of work and effort into keeping our community safe, and you really won't find that anywhere else. So, thank you, Paula, and your team. Before we move on to the next scam, let's take a look at the poll results. So we asked you guys, how confident are you in spotting a scam? And 47% of the audience voted that they know a little bit, but still want more help. And 13% of you guys said that you're not confident at all. So again, definitely perfect timing for this webinar. Paula, do you have any additional thoughts on the results?
Well, I'm super confident that after this webinar, everybody will be able to say that they are scammers, experts, and will be able to spot and go against them in the long run.
For sure. So moving on to our third poll, we'd like to know, where do you look for places for rent? Guys, don't forget to ask us your questions as well. We will get back to them during our Q&A at the end of the webinar. So the next slimy scam we're looking at is the Send Money Now scheme. Paula, obviously you need to pay for rent and deposits, right? So why should we be cautious of sending people money who ask for it?
Yes, of course, you have to pay the rent. And in BC, landlords can ask for a security deposit, which can be up to the cost of half month's rent. Plus, if this is a pet-friendly place and you do have a pet, they can also ask for a pet deposit, which is additional half month rent up front. So the maximum deposit you could pay will be a full month of rent on top of the cost of rent. However, here's the thing, until you have signed the lease, you don't have to pay anything. It is very suspicious when the landlord seems to be very urgent in demanding the money, maybe even before you sign the lease. They might ask for more money than it's legally allowed, so make sure you do know your rights. Or sometimes they do ask for an urgent wire transfer or viewing and application fees, which are not legal at all.
hmm So why should they be suspicious about asking for the money quickly though? Like what is happening there?
So a professional landlord and property manager understands that tenants should not be completely pressured into making a snap decision and handling over money right away. So they do know that they need time to think about their decision, right? So if you're like, if you feel like you're being pressured somehow to hand over money fast, try to communicate with the landlord. Let them know you're good to proceed, but you won't pay anything until you sign the lease. And if they don't have an appropriate response, then you should just avoid the listing and move on to finding another one on LiveRent.
Mhm. So don't get caught up in handing money over right away. Know your rights and definitely take a closer look at things, is what I'm getting at here. So moving on to the next scam, we went from one where a landlord asked for too much money, and now we're moving on to one where the landlord asked for way too much information. Paula, can you tell us a little bit more about this kind of scam?
Of course, it's not just your money that scammers want, they also want your personal information. This is a case where it's extremely important to know your rights as a tenant and what a landlord can ask for and what they cannot ask for. Bottom line, until you decide that you are ready to move forward with a lease, you do not have to share any information with the landlord you don't feel comfortable with. The scammers might try to ask information like your passport info, social insurance number, credit card number, or bank account information.
But the landlord they do need some information, right? So what can they ask for and what should we give them?
So once you do decide on a property, the landlord may ask you to show documentation that proves you are able to afford the rent payments. So they don't need this information until after you decide to move forward with an application, though.
Okay. And what should we do to protect ourselves for this kind of scam?
First and foremost, be informed and know that in Canada, landlords can ask you for information like your SIN number, a copy of your driver's license, a passport, or income tax assessment. But they can only use these to confirm your identity and make sure you can afford to pay rent. You're not obligated to provide it. So if you feel a little bit unsure, maybe ask to see their identity proof and proof that they own the property they're renting out to you. Plus, you can sidestep this by using LiveRent. You can securely upload the necessary documents to your profile where it's kept saved and encrypted. And then when you decide to apply to a listing, a landlord will be able to see at a glance all the information that confirms your ability to pay the rent and your ID.
Awesome. I like that we keep all the documents safe like that, so we don't have to worry about finding them when it's time to apply for a place. It makes it a lot easier. Now, before we move on to our final slimy scam, let's take a look at the poll results here. So we asked you guys, where do you look for places for rent? 38% of the audience voted that they do look at housing advisors. The other 30% or 38% said that they look at listing sites like Craigslist and rental.ca. And then 13% of you guys actually voted for LiveRent, so thank you. Paula, any thoughts on this?
For those 38% looking at listing websites such as Craigslist and rentals.ca, I just want to say, always be super careful. Everyone can just go there and post on Craigslist and rentals.ca, and landlords are not verified out there. So it is an environment where you could be scammed. So make sure you do your due diligence before you go ahead with a rental. If you're not sure, make sure you go to LiveRent, where again, 90% of the listings and landlords are verified. So you will be scam free. And for those who look for housing advisors, LiveRent also works very closely with housing advisors, including Vancouver Film School. So make sure you tune in.
Awesome. So one big red flag that a listing is actually a scam is when a landlord seems to be asking for a lot of information. So for our final scam, it's when they don't ask for enough information.
Yes. So here's the thing. If you find a great place and ask to rent it, then the landlord gives you a lease and asks for rent and deposit without asking you some questions, you should definitely put the brakes on. Think about it. Why would they trust you with their home or their property when they don't know anything about you? So if you didn't have to share your details and fill out an application to get the apartment, that's a super red flag. Here's a brief overview of what a landlord should at minimum know about you before they decide to rent their unit to you. First, your full name, your profession, if you're a student, where are you taking school? Do you work on the side? How many people will be living in the unit with you? Are you having a roommate or are you coming with your family? your current address and where you live. They can always ask you if you're living with your family, with your mom, or if you're already renting. Any rental references you have, as well as your desired moving date.
So, what if they just really like you and they trust you?
Maybe they do like you and they trust you, but would you trust to rent from a landlord who didn't put in the basic normal effort to rent a
Mm.
suite? Generally speaking, responsible landlords will want to verify your information first, particularly your employment and credit score, but also to conduct reference checks. So if a landlord seems like they don't care about a screening process and they just want to sign the contract and get some money, that's definitely not a good sign.
So, what can renters do in this case then?
I would definitely double check to see if the landlord has enough information from you to rent or not. Did they see financial documents that prove you can afford rent? Did they confirm your identity at all? If not, then I would recommend you to definitely move on. Because if even if it's not a scam, they're obviously a little bit clueless and you deserve to rent from a responsible landlord.
Of course, and all of the responsible landlords are on Live Rent. And I say that because we make it easy for them to post their listings, screen tenants, send and sign contracts completely digital. Again, we're going paperless here, guys, which makes it easy for them to rent to anyone from anywhere. We're actually going to show you a better way to rent so you don't have to spend some time looking where the scammers are looking for you, as Paula mentioned. And if you have any questions, please ask them in the live chat. We will get back to them in our Q&A. We've actually just wrapped our part two, slimy scams. So now we're going to move on to how to find safe rentals. Paula, can you walk us through Live Rent and how you can get a place, whether you live in Vancouver, Toronto, or even places like Hong Kong, Cape Town, or anywhere else in the world, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually super excited about this because I've seen international students and newcomers coming to Vancouver and signing all their paperwork without even like one paper, everything digitally through Live Rent in only 3 days. So they found a place, they applied through Live Rent, and then they signed a lease agreement in their own country, even before coming to Canada, which is super cool. So whether you're renting an apartment from down the street or across the world, the process is the same, and I can break it up into 4 parts on how to rent safely with Live Rent. So first, you want to set up your rental profile as well as your rental resume and prepare all the necessary documentation that's needed to rent a place. Next, you want to start your search and inquiry phase to look for listings that you're interested in. Then you start applying and connecting with different verified landlord and property managers. And then finally, you'll sign your digital contract or lease agreement. Simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. So those four steps seems very easy and straightforward. So let's actually dive into the each step right now. Can you tell me a little bit more about setting up the profile? I know sometimes it seems like you need a lot of information to fill out the profile.
That is true. That is a lot of information renters need to prepare before renting and applying to a place. However, you don't need to fill it out yet if you're just starting your search. Once you find a place you love, we ask you to fill out the profile completely, but it doesn't hurt to have all the information prepared and filled out right off the bat. On your Live Rent resume, renter resume, you will upload all the information and documentation that will be used for a tenancy application and standard lease agreement when the landlord offers you the contract to be signed. Although filling out your rental resume is not the most fun part you can have on a Friday evening, Live Rent tries to make the process as easy as possible by only needing to fill out this information once so you can apply to as many places as you need during your rental search. Without Live Rent, you would have to fill out new paperwork for each place you want to apply to.
So is there anything special about filling out the profile when if you're searching, let's say from abroad?
Absolutely, and I love this too. So Live Rent has provided rental resume options to support everyone, including new renters, immigrants, and international students. So on your rental resume, you can select an option that you don't live in Canada. So that means you don't have a credit record in here and you're still able to proceed. You can also select the option to say that you are first-time renter, meaning you don't have landlord's references yet. With this on your profile, landlords will understand that you won't have a Canadian tax return to show if you haven't even lived in Canada yet. And landlords will also understand that as a first-time renter, you will not have references from previous landlords. I also want to note that all the documentation uploaded to LiveRent is stored safely and securely.
Okay, so after you do step 1, which is to fill out your profile, what is step 2?
Step 2 is the fun part, is the search. So we have lots of search functions on LiveRent. You can search by map, by listing type, by the number of bedrooms, by price, and even by, knowing if the place is pet friendly or not. Over 90% of LiveRent listings are verified. And to help protect you from scams even more, we would recommend looking at verified listings and renting from verified landlords. You can look for the little blue check mark and you will know that LiveRent already did the work to make sure this is a trusted landlord. You can also compare listings within the same building, which is super cool, to make sure you find the best deal possible. Once you find a place that you like, you will begin to inquiry and chat with the landlord. And you can always message a landlord instantly to ask questions, ask to see more photos, and set up a viewing. We also provide video tours and 3D tours, which is super cool for you to make sure that you're actually getting what the landlord is saying.
So after you've completed your virtual or in-person showing, what is the next step?
Step 3 is to apply. So remember the rental resume we discussed in step 1? Well, since you've already completed that, it makes the step so much easier. So LiveRent has standardized the entire tenancy application process so you know exactly what information and documents you need to submit to your landlord for them to consider you for a listing. So your tenancy application will include documents like your basic information, your credit score, financial details, references, and also your desired moving date. All the information we mentioned earlier that responsible landlords often request during the application process will be there. With LiveRent, you can easily apply to multiple listings with just one application with our one too many application feature instead of having to email 5 different landlords the same information over and over again. So if you have like 10 places in mind, you can just quickly open them all, apply in one click, and that's everything you have to do.
Awesome. So for the final step, which is signing the contract, what is involved in that?
This is so easy, and you can sign a contract on LiveRent in a matter of like 1 minute. Once the landlord has reviewed your information on the tenancy application and would like to offer you the tenancy for their unit, they will send you a digital contract for you to review and sign. The process is super simple, and it won't require you to download an email attachment, go to the print shop to make a paper copy. It's all paperless. Plus, if you're looking to secure a place before you move to Canada, you're able to do that seamlessly and securely from anywhere in the world.
I love that with LiveRent, cutting out the paperwork. We're cutting out the paperwork that's involved, and it's actually perfect for April and this theme of Earth Day. And again, we're trying to save as many trees as we can, guys. We're going paperless.
And make sure
Awesome.
you're saving time as well. Like no one has
Yes.
time to, be spending with multiple different platforms going through like emails, text messages, phone calls. You can do everything in one place and save you a bunch of time.
For sure, and not get catfished.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Paula, for walking us through those steps. We're actually going to move into our Q&A session now. So let's check our first question here. So this one is from Rachel, and Rachel is asking, is it unusual for a landlord to request for you to complete an online rental application for a $50 fee?
That's a great question, Rachel. And the answer is a big no-no, big red flag. As we mentioned before, landlords are just allowed to ask you for a security deposit. I'm talking about BC a security deposit, and a pad deposit. And this is just after you sign the lease agreement. There's no rental application fee. There's no viewing fee. I've heard a few people talking about, oh, my landlord is trying to ask for a showing fee, admin fee. There is nothing of that. Nothing is allowed.
Okay. For our next question, this is actually from Omar in the live chat. Hey, Omar. So he's asking, can I find a master bedroom in a shared apartment at Live Rent or just a full apartment?
That's also a great question, Omar. We do have on our filters, we have the ability for you to choose between a condo, a townhouse, a house, or only a room. So if you select the option to choose a room, you will be able to see all shared rooms on Live Rent. And you can always double check if they're from verified landlords or not.
Awesome. Next question here. Mighty, sorry if I'm butchering your name, I'm sorry. But Might is asking he's looking for trustworthy websites where he or she can find a cheap studio or 2-bedroom apartment to rent in Vancouver.
I think after this webinar, you already know the answer, which is Live Rent. But I'm also going to tell you that if you want to provide your email address, we can get in touch with you. Live Rent has an amazing team of renter ambassadors, and they're ready to send you a couple of options. If you're looking for a cheap studio, 2-bedroom apartment, they're going to do all the search for you, and they're going to send it straight to you.
Okay. Next question here is from Caitlin. Caitlin is asking, have you had any instances of any landlords not allowing renting international students to do their 2-week quarantine in the apartment they're renting?
Well, that's a tricky question. Thank you, Caitlin. I've seen a couple of landlords being a little bit hesitant about renting to not only international students, but people who are coming from other countries in general, just because it's a very tricky situation right now with COVID restrictions and all of that. What my advice to you would be, make sure you have a negative test, COVID test to show, and make sure you also let them know that you're doing their quarantine in another place. I believe landlords will be still a little bit hesitant in terms of, giving their place for you to quarantine if you don't have a negative test. It's always good for you to communicate with them and see what is the best option for you to. Yeah,
for sure. So moving on to the next question from Alexi. Alexi's asking how to find a decently priced pet-friendly rental. And I think we already know the answer to this question.
Yes. Live Rent is definitely a great place for you to find pet-friendly rentals. More than 30% of our listings on our website are pet-friendly. And I've seen multiple landlords who don't necessarily put their pet policy in the listing, but sometimes they're open to small and well-behaved pets. So even though, let's say you really like an apartment, it doesn't say anything about accepting pets or not, make sure if they're verified on Live Rent, make sure you give them a shout and then just ask, like, I have a small dog. Make sure you also have that on your rental resume, a little bit about an information about your pet, and ask them. It doesn't hurt. Maybe they are willing to allow your pet if you have a strong application.
For sure. Next question is from Kezi, who is in our live chat. Hey, Kezi. Kezi is saying, I found a listing on Harrow Street. How can I verify if it is legit?
Great question, Kezi. I'm not sure if you're talking about Live Rent or not. If you're talking about Live Rent, just make sure you look for our little verification check mark, and you will be able to see if the landlord and the listing were both verified by our team. If they have the check mark in there, just start chatting with the landlord. Make sure you send your application, because if it's a very competitive listing, you will be dealing with a couple of renters already like sending applications and trying to chat with the landlord. If you're talking about other listing websites, then things become a little bit trickier. I would say that, Google the address, maybe try to drive by. If there is a phone number in there, try to Google the phone number. Sometimes it can be associated with a property management company, and then you will be able to tell.
Awesome. So another question here from Omar. Can you fill out the renter resume on both the LiveRent app and the website? Are there any extra costs for LiveRent services?
Yes, that's a great question. So the beauty of LiveRent is that you can do everything in the palm of your hand. So what I usually do whenever I'm house hunting out there, I just have my phone with me. I download the LiveRent app and I can do everything on the phone. You can always do it on the web as well, on the website. But if you have the app on your phone, why not? It's super easy. And we don't charge anything extra for renters to use. So it's completely free.
Absolutely. And it's made by renters for renters, right? So next question here is from Ankit. Ankit is asking, does bargaining work with landlords? I think this is a really great question.
Really great question.
We have loads of great questions.
Yes, thanks for sending all those questions, guys. That's a really good one, especially now during COVID. As we mentioned during the webinar, we've seen a couple of landlords doing rental incentives, and those are really good ones. Sometimes like free rent, just not free forever, just for the first month. Or sometimes you're just reducing a little bit, 5% up to 10% of the rental price, parking extra. But it is also important for you to understand if the listing has been in the market for a little while or if the price is too competitive. So let's say we're talking about a listing that is $1,700 for a one bedroom in Vancouver downtown. That is a very competitive price, meaning it's more affordable than the other ones out there in the market that we usually find. This means the landlord is probably receiving so many applications and inquiries that they won't be willing to negotiate the price. But if you consider yourself a very strong applicant, I would say, just try it and try to negotiate, maybe, roll a parking spot in or even storage if you need storage locker. And always keep in mind that I would say 5% negotiation margin is always a good thing to ask.
For sure. And I think now, like you mentioned, now is a great time to negotiate because we are in such a weird and strange time. And we did discuss this in a few webinars ago with rental trends. So you can actually catch that on our YouTube channel if you'd like to check that out. Moving on to the next question, though. Kezi here is asking, what is the price range for a furnished bedroom apartment with space that is not so far from VFS? I think the distance there.
Great question, Kezi. There are a couple of furnished places in around the area. According to our April rent report, the price for a rented furnished place in Vancouver downtown is $23.17 per month. I think right now during COVID, you might be able to find something around 2,100 or even a little bit less if you're looking for a smaller place. So sometimes it can be, a one bedroom apartment, but a little bit smaller. I would say like 500 square feet or 550. You might be able to find it for around that price. Make sure that you send us an email with your search preferences and all of that, and our team will be happy to help.
Awesome. So we've got our last question here from Dave, also in our live chat. Hi, Dave. Dave's asking, what's the legal security deposit in Ontario?
Hi, Dave. Great question as well. So apparently in Ontario, landlords are not allowed to ask for a security deposit. They cannot call it that way, but they can ask for a rent deposit. And that can be up to 1 month rent. So that's the regulation in there. They can also not ask for a PAT deposit, but they can accept one if the renter is willing to give.
Okay. And that basically wraps up our Q&A session. So for any of the questions we did not get a chance to address today, Paula and the VFS team will connect with you via email. From my end, honestly, guys, thank you for the great questions. We had so many.
Yes, it was very spectacular. I love it. Thanks again, everyone. Catch you again on our next Live Talk and follow us for more rental related updates. Bye now.
Bye.